Welcome to the Rarity Iceberg, a video about Rarity delivered in Iceberg format. Now this iceberg goes pretty deep and goes into some obscure territory, so viewer discretion is advised. Yeah, I'm not doing that the whole video. Hello and welcome to Errata Text, the follow-up to the 7 Deadly Trading Card Game Sins, where we look at design concepts and conventions about trading card games. But first, a word from our sponsor. This past year has been hard for everybody. However, it's been particularly hard on my back because for the past year and a half, my computer chair has been this. Yep, that's an old waiting room chair from a pharmacy I helped remodel. It's fine to sit in if I'm like eating dinner or doing laundry, but for hours-long scripting and editing sessions? No, sir. So why have I been subjecting myself to this chair? Well, you see, I'm built like an ogre, and as a result, my relationship with conventional office chairs has been fraught. Fortunately, the folks over at Ewin Racing heard of my plight and offered to send me one of their Flash XL gaming chairs, which is apparently sturdy enough to handle somebody twice my weight. They sent me one in blue, as I guess they haven't made one in spectacular green just yet. Some assembly was required, but they included all the tools, and after 4 replays of the Black Betty Rough and Ready remix, it was ready to go. This baby's got the works, adjustable arm and backrests along with solid lean and a set of ergonomic back and neck pillows. Guys, I cannot emphasize enough how much more comfortable these pillows make this chair. I've had this chair for a couple of weeks now and have certainly noticed the difference. The way I can lean back the chair like a car seat lets me take full advantage of the support at any reclining angle, and the way I can lower the armrests means I can easily stow it underneath my editing desk when I need the space. It's always the little things. Feel free to use my affiliate link in the description and use the coupon code KODOK at checkout to save 20% off your order. That can be as much as $100, and I mean, come on, they did me a solid here. At least give them a look. Again, that's this video's sponsor, Ewin Racing. Use my link below and check out using coupon code KODOK to get 20% off of your order. So today we're talking about card rarity. Card rarity is a pretty straightforward concept. It's how frequently a card will appear in any given run, whether via booster packs, boxes, cases, whatever. It's hardly a concept that's unique to trading cards, as other collectibles have things such as limited editions or chase figures given some kind of special treatment like my clear invisible ones here that are designed to make them appreciate in value and generate an interest in collecting as a whole. In the case of trading cards, each random pack of cards is usually given different quantities of each card rarity, with the most common cards getting many more slots in each pack than the higher rarities, meaning that the cards printed at those higher rarities have a much lower chance of appearing in any given pack. A common feature of card rarity is to identify it with a visible feature on the card. Not all games used to do this, but it's standard practice these days. These are usually done with symbols in different colors or shapes, letters in a prominent location, or even metallic stamping or foiling effects. But the tricky part of doing this in trading card games is that these are not just collectibles, but game pieces as well. And so things like universality, availability, and practicality are also things to keep in mind. It can be tempting to take the best cards, the most powerful, most efficient, and high-powered, and make them top rarity. These are the cards that players will want the most after all, so it makes sense to place them in the spots where they have the most value. This, however, is a trap, because if the only cards worth using in your game are at the top rarity, not only are you making it so that all the cards at the bottom rarity basically have no reason to exist, but you risk bleeding out those players who are unable to play simply because there aren't enough copies of these rare cards to go around. Not to mention, a lot of game-defining cards, ones that set the bar on how strong a card is in its respective games, are printed at all rarities, even common. Most top-tier decks aren't a pile of nothing but top rarity cards. They're usually cards of lower rarities, and a few cards at high rarities that act as the glue that ties it all together. The idea that the best cards in your game should be top rarity is a notion created by the genre's roots as a raw trading product, and awareness of this fact and knowing how to avoid it is key to getting things right. According to this article from 2018, the designers of Magic the Gathering rate their cards based on complexity and splash. But, of course, it's not that simple. Perhaps it would be a good idea to break down what goes into each rarity. Some way I could do it with an easily scalable fashion that really gets below the surface of... Fine. Common cards are the cards that people will see the most. They might not make up the majority of the cards in your set, but they are the cards that make up the majority of your pack contents. Players have an easy time accumulating these, to the point that some consider them to be literal junk or pack filler. And yeah, that's certainly the case if you handle your commons poorly, where they really are just nothing but bad cards and wasted ideas. Of course, you can't just give all of your best cards away, then the cards that you put actual rarity into will have no room to shine. So, what is the balance? What cards go at common? Common cards tend to be foundational, broad, and basic. They tend to be self-explanatory, such as cards with simple effects that represent the archetype they are attached to, or which can be summed up in a short sentence. Things like early turn cards, basic cantrips, and low-cost vanilla beaters. By the way, when someone refers to a card as vanilla, it means the card doesn't have any special abilities or effect text. Its text box is essentially blank for gameplay purposes. A vanilla beater is a card with good stats for its cost, as though its buffed stats were its special ability. Common cards don't tend to go into a large variety of decks, usually just the ones specific to type, but they act as good fallbacks for something reliable. Their simplicity also makes them easier for new players to understand, and considering how many commons they will end up with, giving them as many easy effects can help them get the gist of your game. Even a card with a single keyword and its reminder text can act as a useful teaching tool. Of course, there will be some cards that might not be as good, but instead act as lore or fan service. These are fine too, but it might not be a good idea to use the common slot as a dumping ground for bad ideas. Some of those should probably wind up on the cutting room floor instead. Common cards also tend to have the starring role in sealed and draft play, where players open only a handful of booster packs, giving them a limited card pool to build decks with, and commons are likely the only cards that they will get multiple copies of. If it's a card you feel players should have an easy time getting full sets of, it should probably go at common. A few examples of famous common cards would be Counterspell, Lightning Bolt, Alolan Vulpix, Instant Fusion, Hammer Spark, Aqua Hulkus, and of course, Pole Position! Just one more thing to keep in mind before we move on. When it comes to cards that get printed in pre-constructed decks, those are technically common cards by default, no matter how shiny you make them, as you get them in every copy of a deck you purchase. The only thing that would affect the value of these cards would be the availability of the actual deck, its price, and how much people are willing to buy the individual cards to avoid buying another deck. That said, there's nothing wrong with tweaking the card ratios or blinging out important cards in a starter deck to key in players to the importance these rarity rolls tend to take. And with that said,
pole position. It'll turn your eyeballs into steel-belted radial.
Uncommon cards fill boosters about half as much as common cards. This is sort of the odd duck rarity, reserved for cards too complex to be printed at common, yet not powerful or strange enough to be put into rare. It's such an odd duck that some games ditch this rarity altogether, instead divvying them up between the common and rare slot. Pole Position would likely be one of these kinds of cards, if Yu-Gi-Oh! Had uncommon cards. Usually it's the games with smaller set sizes and booster packs that forego this rarity slot. This category tends to contain mid-stage plays, combo fodder, or important universal staples. Yeah, I'm just gonna come out and say it. If a card belongs in like 90% of all decks in the metagame, unless it's in those decks at really low quantity, it should probably be printed at uncommon. That way there are enough copies to go around, but it's scarce enough that it still retains value. Remember what I said before about bleeding out players by simply not having enough copies of cards to go around. Famous cards in the uncommon slot would be Ultra Ball, Force of Will, Professor's Research, Terraforce, Voltaic Key, Double Colorless Energy, and Crystal Lancer. Freaking Crystal Lancer, this thing ruined my life! Now we're getting to the interesting stuff. For experienced players, it isn't long before they start fishing around for the stuff found only in the rare slots of the booster packs. Rares are where we start to see the heavy hitters, the iconic characters, the really beefy monsters, the global effects, the lockdown cards, or have interesting potential. Many have complex, self-contained mechanisms that might be a bit much for a new player. Since they are the most scarce of the basic rarities, they should try to be exciting when they emerge from a booster pack and should have top-tier art and splashy text. There are honestly too many iconic rare cards to mention, partially because Magic didn't have a higher rarity for the first 15 years of its life. The Power 9, which includes the Black Lotus, are easily the most iconic rare cards of all time. However, you'll also see the likes of Computer Search, Pot of Greed, Wrath of God, Rainbow Energy, King of the Swamp, Mimi Green, Holy Awe, Super Fuel, and Substitute. However, it is worth mentioning that it has gotten harder to find iconic rare cards in recent times, largely because their role as the top rarity has since been usurped by... This rarity goes by many names: Mythic Rare, Holofoil Rare, Super and Ultra Rare, EX Rare, Double R and Triple R, Awesome Rare and Bakugan Elite, etc. The thing they all have in common is that, unlike regular rare cards, they don't appear in every booster pack, usually more like 1 in 3, and so are much more of a special or premium item, usually with a special printing treatment like foil stamping. These cards are capstones. They are the endgame of a typical deck strategy. Not used in a lot of decks, but the decks that need them really need them. These cards are the glue I was talking about earlier in the video, the win condition, final evolution, combo finisher, or boss monster as Yu-Gi-Oh likes to call them. Often complicated to use, but very powerful when their setup conditions are met, these are the sorts of cards that players crack packs for and around which winning decks are built. I've already said it before, but try to avoid putting universal staples at this category, unless the player needs, like, literally one copy. Mox Opal works as this rarity. Professor's research really would not. In fact, cards that require full playsets to function can also be a problem at the higher rungs of this category. Bushiroad got in a bit of trouble by basically requiring players to own full playsets of every top rarity card in order for them to work. But as long as you have a healthy and diverse meta, where pretty much all of your top rarity cards will have a need by somebody, these cards should freely cycle around to reach those who need them most through the usual secondary market shenanigans. Iconic rarity beyond rare cards are the real heavy hitters, like Charizard, Exodia, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Bolshak Dragon, Omnimon, Titan Dragonoid, Seismitoad EX, etc. Okay, this one is also a bit of an oddball in that it has a couple of subcategories: special printings and secret rare. A special printing comes in two flavors: promo cards and parallel foils. Promo, short for promotional cards, are exactly what they sound like. These are special cards made for some sort of promotion, event, or special merchandise. They tend to be produced in bulk for their particular purpose and only become rare once that purpose is over and no more are available. Premium-est of these are box toppers and tournament prizes, which have a more limited run than, say, a local league giveaway, deck foil, or cereal box pack-in. The big three have all made the mistake of printing promo cards like this that turned out to be a vital game component, so unless it's the kind of promotion where you'll be giving them out like candy to basically anybody, try to avoid that, or, just don't make a promo card that powerful in the first place. The other kind of special printing is the parallel foil. This is where a normal card from a game is given a foil stamping. It can be any given card in a set, as though someone opened a booster pack, splashed a bunch of foil on the cards, and stuck one random card from that pack into other booster packs. Now, it certainly adds a bit of flair to a game for players to open a pack and get a shiny card in the back, but in practice, a parallel foil card is valued only slightly more than a non-foil version of the card, unless said card is already in high demand. It's sort of the premier ball of rarities, in that it works exactly the same as the regular version would, it's just more difficult to acquire. Now, I know there are certainly those who want to try to foil out as much of their deck as possible, but there are at least as many people who couldn't care less. At best, it can foil pack weighers who try to detect the added weight found in the foil of rarity beyond rare cards. If every pack has a foil, that method doesn't work. Most like the fact that it means a pack can sometimes contain an additional rare card if one lands in the foil slot, but it's hardly an essential pack component. The other premium rarity is known in most circles as the secret rare. This also goes by many names: full art, SP, VR, extended art, short print, alt art, etc. What they all have in common is that they aren't found once per booster pack, but usually only once per booster box, on average about 1 in 30 packs. These cards are pure bling, the sort of cards people crack boxes for and dedicate the front page of their collector binders to, often with extravagant foiling and border-breaking artwork. Usually, these secret rare cards are fancier versions of cards in the regular set. Unlike parallel foils though, something special is done to these cards to make them stand out, usually with expanded or different artwork or some other kind of total glow-up, capitalizing on the fact that the regular versions of these cards will already be in high demand, and so a special version of the card will be even more so. These glow-ups tend to work better with iconic characters that fans of the series already love and would enjoy a special version of. But then there's the sticky situation of unique cards at this rarity. Things can get a bit hairy if the capstone card of a deck is one that you only get one shot at per booster box. Yu-Gi-Oh! Tends to get this the worst, as basically all of their secret rare cards are unique and often act as the capstone of a particular deck. This has become less severe in recent years, as the number of each secret rare needed for each deck is rarely a full playset. These guys, though, remember how I described that they have a nasty habit of needing full playsets of their higher rarity cards? Yeah. Their first series reboot in 2018 introduced the Vanguard Rare, their version of the unique secret rare, and, well, the fact that they are retiring this rarity in their recent restructuring should tell you all you need to know. Most cards at this rarity have a lower rarity equivalent, so the iconography of these cards is debatable, but some infamous examples would be Nexus of Fate, Tropical Beach, Harpy's Feather Duster, and Dragonoid Maximus. Ah, here we are, the truly tippiest, toppiest of rare cards. The Buddy Rare, the Rainbow Full Art, the Gold Rare, the Signature Card, the Ultimate Rare, the Kaladesh Inventions, the Ghost Rare, the Fabled Rare. Cards that people might not ever even see, let alone pull. With not even every box holding one of these cards, sometimes being only 1 in 5, 1 in 20, or even 1 in 72 boxes. These cards are trophies, nothing more and nothing less.
Now, I need to make something absolutely clear. I have no problem with including cards in your game that are truly, genuinely special. Cards that generate those once-in-a-lifetime pulls, or would be the crown jewel of any collection, or, yeah, that command ridiculous prices on eBay. But these kinds of cards are sort of part of the adventure, and cards with this kind of high collectability are certainly a part of the genre's appeal. Just don't make them power cards, okay?
Something you might notice about a lot of these cards which command the highest prices is that a lot of them actually aren't very good. I mean, sure, you can make them seem really strong on the surface, but your typical competitive player should be able to see that these cards aren't a threat to the actual metagame. Shiny Charizard VMAX requires an insane 5 energy to perform its strongest attack. 10,000 Draken is a boss monster with no means of self-protection. And it's not even as strong as 10,000 dragons anyway. What gives? Eye of Ophidia? Well, okay, Eye of Ophidia is actually kinda good, but it's hardly a game breaker. They're cards that can certainly be awesome in favorable conditions, boasting big numbers and crazy powers, but that wouldn't hold up in the rough environment of the game's meta.
People don't pay huge amounts for Shiny Charizard VMAX because it's an amazing card, they pay it because Charizard is really popular. If you make your 1 in 72 boxes card the key component of a winning deck, you're just being a jerk.
Like with a lot of the secret rares, the vast majority of these are also cards printed at lower rarity, acting as chases for fans of the characters or those who want to bling out their deck with fancy cards.
It's also definitely worth mentioning that there are certain outside factors that can also cause a card's rarity to skew up or down, and the biggest one, easily, is fame.
If the card is based on a character that is popular or is known to be elusive, it should probably get a rarity bump. Did a character or design turn out to be a big hit with the fans? Or does the art just look really sick in foil? Maybe it should get a special printing. If a popular card goes out of print due to the game moving on, maybe a special version or even a starter deck version might not be a bad idea. All of the big three dabble regularly in making greatest hits sets featuring a gaggle of popular cards, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically will reprint formerly top rarity cards in starter deck if said card turns out to be a game staple. The gold rare rarity in Pokemon basically exists to bring the regular version of that card back into legal play without making a full-on reprint, sort of the compromise between reprinting and value retention. And it's important to know that you won't always get it right. You might print a card at top rarity that turns out to be a total flop, or you might print a card at common that winds up breaking your game. It's one of the perils of releasing a set to market, with the exponential increase in playtesters that essentially brings with it. A good rarity scale is also fair. It lets players build at least a functional deck out of a starter set and a few packs with enough flexibility to give the deck their own flair, with only the top levels of play requiring serious investment. But anyway, I hope I've helped give you a better understanding as to how card rarity is incorporated into game design. It limits how quickly a new player might be inundated with complex ideas, allows cards of certain design types to flourish in limited environments, and how it fosters the trading scene and gives a bit of adventure to the experience as well. If every card feels like it fills its proper spot on the rarity list, then every pack opening should be exciting. And speaking of that, we will be taking a look at that in the next episode. Keep all these things in mind and you too can build a better card game. Join us next time on Errata Text.